Welcome to Ministry Mind Leadership Podcast Season 4 that we have entitled Beyond the Sanctuary, where we're hearing from different leaders from across Canada that are taking the gospel beyond the walls of the church. Today, my guest is Andrew Vahi from the Village of Hope. Andrew and his dad, Mart, have begun a ministry for those struggling with addictions. First, they started in Estonia many years ago. Then they moved into New Brunswick, and most recently, they have started here in Eston, Saskatchewan, where I live. Andrew shares today that oftentimes you don't just wake up one day and decide, oh, this is God's plan for my life, and here we go. But instead, it's often through our life circumstances that God will reveal to us the plans He has for us. Those plans are always better than we ever imagined or hoped for. Andrew challenges us and their students to not tell God what your future holds, but instead ask God what your future holds. I know that you will be encouraged today as you listen in to the stories of transformed lives through this ministry. And I hope that it encourages you to look for the group of people that God has uniquely positioned you to minister to, and as well, those that He has positioned you to minister with. Enjoy today's episode. Welcome to Ministry Mind Podcast. Today I have Andrew Vahi joining me today, and I'm really happy to have Andrew. We have gotten to know Andrew a little better through his ministry and through their ministry actually moving into Eston, Saskatchewan as well this past year. So I'm happy to highlight this ministry and allow you to get to know Andrew and Village of Hope better today. So welcome, Andrew.
Thank you. Great to be with you, Kim. Appreciate you having me on here.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where do you live, your family, hobbies, that sort of stuff?
Well, right now I live right on site at the Village of Hope in New Brunswick, together with my wife, my 3 kids. They're all moving into the teenage years. My son's already turning 17 this Sunday, and he was born in the country of Estonia.
Wow.
So that kind of gives me an idea how long I've been here now, since his first birthday. But we live right here. We have a staff housing. Other staff live here on site as well, and that's part of. We always have one to live here on the property with everybody else, and that kind of forms the community of the Village of Hope ministry. Is just having families on site and so on. So it's pretty neat. It's a great place to live. We have a beautiful view of the river here in New Brunswick, where I am right now today. But I do travel around a lot, also to the other sites. And I'll probably tell you more about that later in this information here. But
Yeah.
Estonia and also back to Eston, Erica's hometown, of course, and so on. So always great to go there as well.
Awesome. What do you like to do in your spare time?
Well, spare time's not something you have a whole lot of.
Yeah.
Definitely busy with Village of Hope ministry and family, 24/7. So I guess stuff I do that I enjoy doing is probably things I do along the way, such as travel is one of them, and food and fitness. That's something you can do every day.
Yeah.
But I also enjoy things like I don't know how I got into watches, but that seems to be a bit of a hobby of mine.
Interesting.
I don't know if I spent too much time in airports looking around, but that became kind of a hobby as well.
Interesting. Okay, so tell our listeners a little bit about Village of Hope. What is it?
Well, Village of Hope is a ministry that, we used to always say that basically we're an organized opportunity for a man or a woman to get their life right with the Lord. And it's basically people that have gotten away from God through drugs and alcohol in their life, or maybe never knew God in the first place, had no relationship with the Lord, but are in trouble through their drug and alcohol addiction and that kind of lifestyle. And so we're a discipleship program where people come live on site for 10 months, and they go through classroom teachings, they go through various different work sites that we have. Right now here, we're doing our maple syrup season. And so we have maple festivals. We turn the site into a restaurant every Saturday and have tomorrow we have, I think, 180 people coming for all you can eat breakfast and testimonies and live music and all this kind of fun stuff as well. But we do a lot of different work here. We started from scratch with just a forest. And so construction crew is a big important part as well, just working on new projects each year. And then we have a sawmill as well, in industry, building pallets, building fence panels. In Estonia, we have, I think, the only fire department in the world that's run out of a recovery center. So we go on about 70 calls a year, helping the community with a couple fire trucks and a little boat and a forest fire buggy. But we have a whole lot of variety of activities that we work at, but a lot of it is really, in a nutshell, doing life together. We do have fun activities like sports and prayer meetings and all kind of games night and different things. But it's kind of doing life together. And sometimes if we didn't have the work aspect at the Village of Hope, then we wouldn't really be preparing people for real life also, because sometimes there's a lot of stress and things in that environment that come up, or relationship struggles that we have to learn how to work through.
Right.
And so that's a big part of the program, is kind of doing life together. Whether it's eating in the dining hall together, or doing fun activities, or doing work together, or sitting in the classroom and looking back at our past, looking at our lives, looking at the things that have taken place, and allowing God to heal us from some of the hurts and wounds of the past. Things we've done or things that other people have done to us that we need to let go. So it's a pretty full schedule, every day here, and of course they're here every day of the year.
Right.
So it just kind of goes around like a big cycle.
Yeah. And you have people coming and going too, like starting the program, finishing the program and stuff, because it's kind of a ever going thing. 10 minutes, 10 months, but you could start your 10 months in September or in April. So you're wow.
Yeah. The reason why we do that is because when a person is ready for help, we don't want them to wait. We want them to be able to come in and get the help that they need, because it's hard when you're in the middle of a drug addiction to decide that, on September 15th, I'm going to change my life, and so it's like, if I'm ready to go now, we have to be ready to take them as well.
Absolutely. So Andrew, what led you to start Village of Hope?
Well, that's a good question, because it's not like I just woke up one day and decided that I want to go start a recovery ministry. But I was basically, I had gotten involved, even though I grew up in a pastor's home. My dad was building Smythe Street Church in Fredericton when I was growing up. I was actually born on the mission field. I was born in Lahr, Germany. My dad was smuggling Bibles at the time. And when he was arrested on the border of Moldova, I was 2 years old. So really, ministry's been a part. I've been a part of ministry, or that's been a part of my life, my whole life. And so, when I became a teenager, though, different things happened, and I started to sort of rebel against God and the things that I was taught, and the things my parents stood for. Probably was a big part of that. And got involved into drinking and drugs. And a lot of that was just for fun in the beginning. I don't think there's, even though the people we deal with are adults and they have to make their own choices, as an adult.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody, if they knew the price tag of what it was going to cost at the end, they would have never started. But nobody knows that price tag. You see, everybody gets into it for fun or other things, but nobody starts drinking or even using drugs, especially light drugs like marijuana today is for sale, is very easy to get in Canada. Nobody starts using those things thinking, I hope I'm going to become a drug addict or an alcoholic, right? Or destroy my life. We just want to have fun. And then it becomes a means of escape, and then it grows bigger and eventually can become a lifestyle. And so when we were teenagers, it did become a lifestyle for us. My brother and I, and we got into different things. I carried on with some other friends into thefts and and so on, was even arrested as a teenager and so on, for a break and enter and different things. And I just knew that, I knew in deep down inside, this is not how I wanted to spend the rest of my life.
Right.
And eventually I went and looked for help. I always thought about my Sunday school teachers and the things that they taught me and so on in Sunday school. And even though in some ways I was forced to be there, some of those kind of seeds that were planted, you hear people talk about that sometimes, but that was really true in my case. And that never went away. In my heart, I knew what was right. And I knew the kind of person I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And so I ended up giving my life to the Lord again. I think I was 19 years old, and just decided to make a change. Now, I never knew of any place like Village of Hope to go to, or even if I needed a place like that.
Right.
But someone suggested that I save up some money and go to this Full Gospel Bible Institute in Eston. And so I thought, because I just thought I needed to become a stronger Christian or something.
Yeah.
Because every Friday, I would quit drinking, and,
Just in
and so I ended up saving up some money, bought a plane ticket, and I flew to Eston, and that's what started my journey. And I guess that as I found hope, you see, when I went to Bible college, I wasn't so concerned about credits or
Right.
theology degrees or anything like that. I needed to study the Bible because I needed help.
Yeah.
I needed God to transform me,
Right.
and I needed my life to be changed. And so when I applied those things to my life, when I allowed God to work in me, when I learned the scriptures and how that could operate in my life, I realized that there's hope for me.
Wow.
And when I realized that there was hope for me, I thought there must be hope for somebody else.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to kind of carry this message out and to share this with others. And that's how the Village of Hope really developed, was just a desire to want to give back and help others, to comfort others, as the scripture tells us, with the same comfort that we have received. Right. So I ended up, the Lord connected me with people that had done this work for many years down in the States.
Yeah.
And when I toured that place the first time, I went to two different programs. One was in Orlando, Bridges of America, under Bishop Frank Costantino. And the other one was under Brother Mickey Evans, and down in Okeechobee, Florida. So down there, when I toured there the first time, I remember the Lord spoke to my heart and said, "This is what I want you to build in Estonia." And that became our first Village of Hope, on my great-grandfather's lands over there.
Wow. So you didn't head off to Bible school thinking, I'm going to be a pastor. You just went to find hope, to figure out how your faith was your own. And through that situation and what you came out of, God just opened up a totally different path that you probably never even had thought of before.
Oh yeah, I mean, I went for 3 months. That's all I was going for. One semester, that was it, and one semester turned into 1 year, into 3 years eventually, right? And then a couple more years of training. And I remember even saying, when I left Estonia as a teenager, because we went back there as missionaries again, and I said, I am never coming back to Estonia.
You have to be careful with that statement.
I ended up moving back there with my wife, and we built the first Village of Hope over there. And now I go back 2 to 3 times a year, of course, and continue to work with that team as well. So yeah, the neat thing is that God has always better plans for your life than we do. And just kind of being open to that and saying, I always tell the guys, I said, don't tell God your future, ask him.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have a tendency to speak things out, why it's not going to work and so on. I say, hang on now. God's the one in charge of that. You just got to trust God. So I never knew that we'd be doing all this today. No, I had no idea.
Crazy. So along that line, share with us some of the twists and turns that the ministry's taken you guys on, building it from scratch. What surprised you or didn't surprise you about the adventure?
Well, I guess when you build a ministry, we've done it 2 times now, both in Estonia and then here in New Brunswick, where we basically started with a forest. I was together with my father, and build a village of hope from scratch. I always say it takes the hearts and hands of many people in order to do that, and that's true. And you see, God works through those people, and I guess the part that it does surprise me, and yet it shouldn't surprise me, and then it doesn't surprise me other times, is the fact that God is faithful. If God tells you he's going to do something, he'll find a way to do it. And I can remember one time when I was paying the bills at the Village of Hope, and I was kind of discouraged, one of those days, a big stack of bills. And I thought to myself, Lord, how are we going to pay all these bills? And I felt like the Lord spoke to me and said, Andrew, how many bills have we had since we started Village of Hope? And I thought, that's a lot of bills, Lord. And then I felt like the Lord asked me, well, how many of those bills are not paid?
Fair.
And I said, well, Lord, they're all paid,
Right.
And so, in other words, why do you doubt me now? And so a lot of times, I guess that's kind of one of the biggest areas of my life where I probably have made some mistakes, but where you begin to doubt God because you face a new mountain today.
Right.
He just got you through 10 years of mountains.
Yeah.
And yet you got a new one today, and you think, well, how am I going to get through this one? You see? So trusting God in the process is a big one. And also learning how to enjoy the process too, because there's a lot of victories, even though there's a lot of challenges. Every one of those challenges are turned into a victory.
Yeah.
One miracle after another. I mean, just amazing situations. In fact, God sometimes did it in such a way that you would just know that only God could have put this together.
Totally.
And just to be able to provide for. I remember one time years ago, we were trying to build a road in Estonia, and we felt like the Lord told us to go see a Swede at the quarry. Well, we didn't even know what quarry it was, but we figured we'd go to the closest one and we'd see if a Swedish man worked there. And it turns out Jan Erik Osterland was the man. That's very Swedish.
Very.
He ran the quarry. So my father and I went in there and we laid out this big map on the table, on his boardroom table. And we said, look, this is what we've moved here from Canada. And the Lord has told us to build this, but we need some rock to build a road. Well, he said, I have some rock. I can help you guys. And so he gave us some rock, and we kind of intrigued him, I think. I don't know if he thought we were crazy or not, but we're going to build this village for alcoholics and drug addicts.
Yeah.
And anyways, a while later, we came back and we said, we miscalculated. We need more rock.
Yeah.
And he thought, well, I'm already up to here with you guys. I might as well go all the way. And ended up that he worked with us for about 3 years.
Wow.
And he ended up giving us about $1 million worth of rock, 4,600 dump truck loads of rock. It took to build all of our yards, all of our roads, everything else for that whole property. And so it just showed me how, God has this stuff all lined up in advance. One miracle after another. And it takes a lot of those miracles, to build a village of hope, or more than one of them, of course.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
so
And all those miracles line up to touch one life. And so share with us a story that stands out to you, whichever location, but a story that stands out to you of a transformed life by the love of Jesus.
Well, I would say that, you're exactly right on that, because somebody told me one time, they said, God made us for him, but he made all of this for us.
Yeah.
And so, you think about all these buildings and everything that you have to build and how much money it costs. And those are big miracles. Especially if you're the one that has to pay the bills, that's, how big of a miracle it is.
Mm-hmm.
But really, God does all that for one reason, and that's so he can work in people's lives.
Yeah.
oh, these buildings are just empty shells without the people.
Yeah.
And so they only exist for those people. And especially those moments when you see somebody sitting on a stool in a classroom, and maybe they've been abused for years, and
Right.
maybe they've been believing lies about themselves for years. And to see them just breaking on the stool, crying. I always joke and say we can't even use Kleenexes. We have to use paper towels here. And they're just letting it all out, all this years of hurt and bitterness and anger. And so you see God doing this marvelous work. And you see that's what all this stuff exists for.
Exactly.
So it just provides a place for God to do his work in someone's life. But a transformed life is the biggest miracle you'll ever see.
Mhm.
And we've seen countless stories. Like I remember Eric in Estonia, he's the chief psychiatrist of Tallinn told us this guy's too far gone to work with.
Mm.
Today, he's like he was in an insane asylum, heavily medicated, and they told us to forget about him. Today, he's married, beautiful wife, 3 kids, helps in the church with the youth, is a full-time firefighter today. Had his testimony actually on every newspaper in Estonia at one time. You walked in the grocery store and the whole cashier's line, you would see his picture back when he was selling drugs with a phone up to his ear and an angry face. And today he's a transformed person. You know, those are great miracles. When you see somebody what they were, and then you see what they are today after God comes in their life, right? But there's been a million moments like that where I remember even William, that when he graduated on the train platform, hugging his mom for the first time in several years, and found out that she had given her heart to the Lord and had been praying for him and said, only God can change you. That was the last words he ever heard from her. And today he's doing a tremendous ministry, so just so many lives where you see it not only affects the one person, but the whole family
Yeah.
and everybody that they encounter, right?
Yeah.
Everybody they encounter later on. So it
Absolutely.
has a tremendous ripple effect into their families, into their communities. And some of these people even become full-time workers in ministry, pastors, church leaders. So it's quite amazing to see that.
Yeah, I want to share with you just even the impact that it's had here in Eston. When our community was given the news that the college was moving, that was a really tough thing for our church community and our community at large to hear, because it just felt devastating. It felt like we were being handed a hopeless situation. And how would we survive, or how would it change what we do? And shortly after that, I watched that movie Jesus Revolution. And is that what it's called? Anyways, that movie recently.
Greg
And
Laurie, yeah.
yeah, and so then where I'm watching this movie and I'm watching this pastor welcome these hippies into the church, and the havoc that it plays on the board, the leadership, how it just transforms the look of their church, and then just like spreads like wildfire. Jesus Revolution, like the Jesus people, right? That movement. And as I was really touched by that movie, and as I left the theater, I was driving a friend home. And I said to her, we were having this conversation about the church at large. Who are the people that we need to embrace and welcome in? What's the group of people? And we were talking more like the church at large. And it was not long after that you guys had the dream to say, hey, like maybe we could come to Eston. And I had an elder come sit in my office. I was sitting across from him at my desk, and he said, like we've supported Village of Hope for years. And he said, this is our opportunity to do something different, to do something big. And we can't just say, oh yeah, this is a great ministry, but not in my backyard. And I really felt in that moment when I had that conversation with him, I'm like, this is our opportunity to embrace a group of people and see people's lives transformed. And I mean, this church has had almost 80 years of seeing students come in and out and be equipped and released to go and take the gospel. But this was an opportunity as well for that to change and to see something new and fresh, and for it to challenge our people in a new and fresh way. And so super excited that we have the opportunity to participate in what God is doing, and pretty neat how God uses ministries like this, not just to touch the one, but to even transform those of us that have the opportunity to engage with a different group of people or a different move of the Spirit. And we've been really encouraged, even just hearing, Ben's testimony this past week when we were meeting with government officials and stuff. Like, so proud of him. He's doing such a great job. So talking about kind of that dynamic of the church and about like broadening our understanding of what ministry looks like, what would your desire be for the church to understand about people, their needs in recovery?
Well, I remember when I was in Bible college, actually, I read a book. I can't remember the author right now, but it's Love, Acceptance, and Forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the best, books that I ever read as far as the way that the church should be seen,
Mm-hmm.
I guess, is a place of love, acceptance, and forgiveness. And I think coming out of a lifestyle of drug and alcohol addiction, sometimes you feel like you're such an oddball and everybody's looking at you, and you kind of have this paranoid feeling that you're not going to fit in anywhere and you're not going to belong, and that's not your people, kind of thing. So
Right.
To be accepted, I think is huge for people, just who they are, and so I think that's a big one. I think that's more when people are finished, places like Village of Hope, but to belong to I think people who get involved after recovery into the local church, those are the people who really make it. But that becomes kind of like a real part of their family. And not only that, but on mission together. To be on mission together, I think, is also critical, because you can't just go back to this life of just not doing certain things anymore to
Right.
maintain recovery, but you have to be actively doing other things.
Right.
And so your life is now a benefit in this world, that God's actually using your life to be a plus instead of a minus, which is what you felt like before, and you were before, really. So I think those are key factors, is to provide that place of love, acceptance, and forgiveness, and to bring them into the family and be on mission together. Those are very key items there. I think for people struggling in addiction, the church would probably to help them get to places where they can get help. And I think that's why God tells us to build places like Village of Hope.
Right.
Because that becomes an extension of the church in a sense, right? A part of the body of Christ. I think Brother Mickey used to say that we were like the kidney of the body of Christ. We filter out all the poison, But the thing is sometimes people will, in addiction, go to the church for help, and I think that you need to help people on a certain level to show them that we value you and we love you. But for some people, they'll continue to go back and start to use that as a method of just kind of cushioning the fall, or avoiding the consequences of their own decisions.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes, I know even my dad, when he was a pastor, he's had his tools stolen and different things, different times, trying to help people out. But today we can see that that's why God builds places like Village of Hope, is so that we can all work together, and we can be a place, help people make the right decisions, and go to a place like this if they need that, to be there that long, right? So
Yeah, I think that's a really good key to any even health of any group is to have not just clarity of vision, but of mission. What are we about? What are we for? And I like what you said, even in talking about people in recovery. It's not about subtraction. What am I not going to do or be a part of? But it's the ministry of addition. What do I want to add to my life that's going to transform it? And that's Christ. And then the love of a community, the community of believers. So what advice would you give to family members who have people in need of recovery in their families?
Well, I think kind of the same advice in a sense as the second part of the church question, but obviously you got to show them that you love them and so on, but also loving sometimes means that you're not going to continue to do life for them,
Right.
because they don't want to do it for themselves. So the role of your relationship really has to change. You can coach them, you can give them advice, you can even support them to make good decisions, but to continue to support them to make a bad decision, you're only keeping them in their addiction and keeping them from getting help, really. So sometimes it's important to ask the Lord, what is the proper way to love them, right? Am I loving them, or am I just enabling them to stay in their old lifestyle? And some of the guys that I talked to, they say the best thing they ever did was when the parents told them, this is the ultimatum and it's time for you to move out and so on, because you won't follow our rules here or whatever it is, or you're not making the effort. And guys went and got help. And today they're a totally transformed individual, because somebody had to say enough's enough. And really nobody ever looks for help, by the way, when you're in addiction, unless you're in a crisis.
Right.
And so that crisis could be a legal issue. It could be a wife that says, if you don't get help, we're done with you. Or parents that say, we're done with you also. If you don't get help, we can't continue to do this. You're exhausting our resources and in the end, making them sick, you see. And so, but some type of a crisis usually is what motivates us to say, hey, you know what? I got to do something different. This is not working.
It feels kind of backwards or upside down when you're a parent and for your kid's entire life you're trying to protect them from everything, and at some point what I'm hearing you say is you have to let them hit that rock bottom, get to crisis, and then go, okay, well, like, what are you going to do? Like, here's your options, but we can't continue to coddle you to allow you to continue to do this. And that's got to be such a hard thing on families, but so needed. And it speaks to the amount, the high level of crisis that you probably are constantly getting engaged in, with people coming in that crisis situation, and you're regularly probably experiencing that level of crisis. How do you manage doing a ministry while having family and trying to have that healthy balance with a ministry that, I'm at the beginning of the interview, you're saying, like, I don't got a lot of time because this is a 24/7 thing. We're doing life together. How do you balance that, Andrew?
Well, that's not easy. That's a difficult question to answer, really, because it's you do have things that come up. You have to set boundaries, and having a team, I think, is very critical. We need a bigger team all the time as we grow, but having a team, you can't do it without a team, and supporting each other in the team. You really can't grow in a ministry any more than your leadership. So developing leadership becomes a key factor in that. But also bringing your family along, when you get a chance, and when you're doing things that are kind of the fun part of your work, bringing family along, But also having some friends I find to sort of debrief a little bit outside of the home,
Yeah.
not
So
bringing too many work issues home. If there was a crisis at work, there's no point in your wife always dealing with that. I probably did that way too much in the beginning years.
right.
And then it causes too much stress there. So it's important to have some friends that you can debrief with a little bit and sort of, just decompress. And of course, I also find that personal time, we teach a lot on self-leadership here. But just for me, that personal time, I get up early in the morning and I do a quiet time and exercise and things like that. And that's my kind of, the once you're married and you have 3 kids, your personal time gets very small. And so to have it, from 5 to 6:30 in the morning,
Yeah.
as long as I'm quiet, nobody really cares what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It's kind of the time when I feel like I'm sort of pouring into myself and spending time with the Lord, some physical fitness and stuff, and so I can kind of go and pour out the rest of the day,
Yeah.
right? I think that's an important part as well.
Yeah, well, and especially as your kids get older, they don't go to bed at 7:30, 8 o'clock anymore. So you have to find that pocket of time, and that's usually before they wake up. So I hear you on that one. I like what you said about, it takes a team, and as we grow, the team has to grow, and the support networks even for you guys individually. And I've been watching as your dad and mom have been here in Eston, and I mentioned briefly this week when we were over there, they had a number of the people from our church that are really coming around them and supporting and becoming that network of people for the guys and for your parents, and they're on mission together. And Greg and I get to do a bit of that by having Village of Hope Eston at church and engaging with them that way and getting to know them all. But seeing that team of people on mission together that are really passionate about what's going on, and even watching some of the guys, building some really healthy and strong bonds with some of the elder men in our church and stuff. It's really great to see some of those formations happening. So it obviously takes lots of people to manage this size of ministry. Can you share a little bit about how you built some of those networks and some of those supports kind of from that beginning?
Well, most of the team members that we have as part of the Village of Hope have come up through the ministries. So a lot of them, we've seen them come in as drug addicts and alcoholics, and as God has healed them and developed their character, we begin to see all these gifts and abilities that they have as well, and also kind of begin to determine what the calling of God is on their life. Now, some people are with the ministry for 3 or 4 years. Some of them have been with us for 20 years.
Wow.
So it's pretty neat to see their lives develop, and they become a part of your core team.
Right.
That where you really feel like you have each other's back, and I think that's an excellent that's an excellent part of that support system. I also find though that there's other ones like your supporters. A lot of times, most support, unless it's people that had read a newsletter and God told them to send in some money, and we definitely appreciate that also. And some people have prayed for us and sent us notes and let us know they prayed for us. Well, that means a lot to us. But you also develop some relationships with some of these people. Some of them, whether they're working on site with you, you become friends, and they feel like family after a while. I just had a lady that she has for the last number of years, every year sent our family a Christmas card with a little check in there that just to say Merry Christmas, kind of here's a little Christmas bonus for you. Well, she takes the time to think of that every year, and I thought that's means a lot to us, as a family, and let the whole family know that. And so just little things like that, it reminds you that you're not alone.
Yeah.
And that's very important.
Yeah.
Then I have probably a select group of like a small group of probably 2 or 3 friends that are there through the thick and thin, and And those ones are very valuable also, because you wouldn't, on a personal level, it'd be hard to make it without them.
Yeah.
And of course, last would be the support of your family and your wife and so on. Of course, you want to be supported to be able to give your best to your family, but they
Yeah.
also become a part of that support because you got a family to come home to.
Yeah.
And that's something to be thankful for,
Mhm.
at the end of the day. So all that becomes part of the support network, I think, that the Lord uses
Yeah.
to keep us motivated and encouraged and continuing on, that kind of inner strength to not want to give up and to keep going no matter what.
It's awesome. So how can people get involved with Village of Hope?
Well, there's many different ways to get involved. I just named a few, I guess, through either financial support, prayer support, encouragement. But sometimes it takes a visit to one of our sites to kind of go and have a tour. And then also kind of what area stands out to you the most. And there may be an area that you really connect with that you say, hey, you know what, that's me. I would love to come and help build on a project, or put together a group from our church to come and do a week of construction or something like that, or someone maybe in the music ministry, or it could be gardening, it could be a million. We have so many different facets of the ministry that there's almost a place for anyone who wants to get involved.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's about having a tour, contacting someone and coming on site and seeing what's going on.
Yeah.
It all depends on what capacity the Lord has blessed you to be able to give.
Right.
So it could be prayer, it could be finances, partnering on a project or anything like that.
Yeah, something we've been talking a bit about, even just with my work with Samaritan's Purse, is talent, treasure, and time.
Yes.
So, you can fit some kind of support in one way, whether it's your time, your talents, or your treasures. And so, thank you so much for sharing about Village of Hope, about sharing a bit of your story and some of the stories that have, some of the lives that have been transformed, and those stories. I really appreciate that. And I think it will help our listeners to understand what's going on. You guys are ever growing, obviously, Estonia, New Brunswick, Eston, and for more coming after that, right? And it's a need that is ever increasing. And so thank you so much for using what God has done in your life to impact people for the kingdom. And we just honor you and your parents and your family for the work that you're doing, and even just for choosing to come to little old Eston. That's awesome. So thanks for giving us your time too today, Andrew.
Thank you, Kim, for having us. And unfortunately, it is an ever-growing problem around the world. And so there's no shortage of work to be done. But I really appreciate the support of everyone that has been involved in Village of Hope, because we could not do it alone, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
There's been so many ACOP churches and individuals that have partnered with us over the years and supported us. There's no way this work could have happened without that. So we appreciate you so much. And thank you for having us on today, Kim. Appreciate it.
Have a great day.
Okay, take care.